with great ecstasy and enthusiasm, we welcome Her Grace Acyuta Gopi Devidasi. She is a very famous speaker, Kirtaniya Kathakar, and on our channel, it's very, very popular. Every time her name comes up, a lot of devotees say, yes, definitely we want to come, don't miss this one. And tonight is going to be very, very special because, first of all, we are in the middle of the sacred month of Damodar, month of Kartik. And typically in the month of Kartik, we are encouraged to go and spend time in the holy dham of Vrindavan and different places of the Lord's pastimes. Especially Parikrama is a very popular thing to do during this time. It's very purifying. But due to certain situations, we may not be able to travel to India. So we have Acyuta Gopi going to take us to India, and not just India, but to the holy dham. So tonight's topic, Parikrama of unique pastime places, a virtual pilgrimage of Krishna's playground. So with that, I pass it on to Acyuta Gopi Devidasi. Hare Krishna.
Jai. Thank you so much again. Thank you for having me. Thank you for setting up these sanghas. Thank you for being a place where everybody can feel safe, feel like there's some touch of home, feel like we can all be together again. So thank you again so much. And with that said, of course, Omagyan Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapatantikam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shmati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshacharini Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So I'm indebted completely to all of the assembled Vaishnavas who always send their mercy and their blessings and their good wishes and their prayers. And they make sure that they show up with smiling faces and eager hearts, which gives me somehow the enthusiasm when I feel like, well, what are we going to do? What else are we going to talk about? What else is there? But thinking about the enthusiastic hearts of the devotees makes it a little bit easy. So we find ourselves in an incredibly unique time in the history of the world. We are, for the most part, unable to travel. We're unable to visit many of our friends and loved ones who are far away. And in one sense, we now have an idea of what it was like in the times of Vedic civilization, a time when messaging was slower, a time when travel seemed to be slower, even though they were technologically more advanced than we can even imagine. So, but if we take a minute to look at this lockdown, virus, political climate, patriotic climate, the world, these external circumstances and everything that's happening, they can give us a glimpse into the window of understanding the pastimes of the Lord in a deeper way than we could have thought of before. In feeling far away from our temples and our deities, we can understand how the Brijbasis might have felt, or how the citizens of Mathura or even Dwarka might have felt whenever he went away. In fact, we can now empathize with the statements in Shastra anytime a devotee laments being far away from the Lord. Whereas before, this feeling might have been a theoretical imagining, an idea in our minds. Now, even though we may not be able to fully grasp the emotional reality of this, we can now empathize with those feelings. And it gives our spiritual advancement a bit of a kickstart. And we get to now understand the heart of what devotees say, even within the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when the citizens of Dwarka are gathering just because Krishna has come back, and they say, "O lotus-eyed Lord, whenever you go away to Mathura, Vrindavan, or Hastinapur to meet your friends and relatives, every moment of your absence seems like millions of years. O infallible one, at that time our eyes become useless, as if bereft of the sun." So it all takes on a very different meaning for us now. Before, where we could go run to the temple, just go see him, no problem. Now, we have to sit with this feeling and sit with this emotion, sit with this separation, which, even though they say great devotees feel as the highest ecstasy, doesn't always feel so pleasant for us. And we can even relish the words of Narottam Das Thakur echoing in our minds, being deprived of the association of such wonderful devotees, and the Lord himself, I bash my head against the rock and enter into fire. So it's not always, even though it's supposed to be the highest ecstasy, we can see that it is an uncomfortable feeling. It doesn't always feel the best. But at least speaking for myself, I know that I can't say that I have the spiritual maturity to mirror all of these feelings. But there's a small clue now. I feel like I'm getting a clue into how these great devotees have felt when they send a message from one country to another, or from one end of the country to another, just saying, "Oh, tell me how Rupa and Sanatan are doing. Just tell me how they're feeling while they're in Vrindavan, and maybe the Lord is in Puri." Now, as I watch different Zoom lectures and different videos and podcasts, and I relish looking at my Guru Maharaj, I think of those times when these devotees were so far away from each other. They're thinking, just let me get some word from my dearmost friends, my dearest associates, all of our devotees and spiritual guides and mentors. So in a way, we can understand this separation now, but also we still have the added advantage of these sanghas, these places where we can come together and we can take heart in the association of one another. And in this sangha, I wanted to gain some hope from the wonderful statement in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that wherever the Lord places his feet is Vrindavan. And so thanks to our beloved Param Gurudev, Srila Prabhupada, we have hundreds and thousands of Vrindavans all over the world. Every home, every person. So I wanted to go on a pilgrimage, visiting places that maybe one might not always visit during a traditional parikrama, because this is not a traditional time. And as we visit each place, I hope that we will absorb ourselves in the small leelas that are there available to us. And that in this journey, we can lift our spirits and we can give joy to each other's hearts. So I pray for your mercy and blessings that somehow I will be able to be a conduit for that grace and joy, knowing that if I give happiness to all of you, then ultimately that will give the most happiness to my Gurudev and Sri Govinda Dev. So we can begin our journey with a prayer to the gatekeeper of the realm of Sri Vrindavan Dham. We can pray to Gopeshwar Mahadev that he allows us entrance to the most wonderful abode of pastime places. Though we may be physically seated in so many places in the world, he knows how to help those die-hard Vaishnavas so that they are able to achieve their heart's desire of Bhakti Yoga. So from Stavavali, we have the prayer, Vrindavana Vanipate Jaya Soma Soma Mole Sanandana Sanatana Naradetya Gopishwara Brajavilasi Yugangri Padme Prema Prayacha Nirupadi Namo Namaste. O gatekeeper of Vrindavan, O Soma, all glory is unto you, O you whose forehead is decorated with the moon, and who is worshipable by Sanandana, Sanatan, Narada, and other great sages, O Gopeshwar, desiring that you bestow upon me divine love for the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Govinda, who perform joyous pastimes in Vrindavan Dham, I offer my respects unto you again and again. With that prayer in our hearts, we'll begin our journey. So if you'd like, get relaxed, free your mind from all the anxieties and everything else that is trying to come at us from these external circumstances. And let us just make ourselves available to travel through space, through time, to a mystical realm and see what happens. Our first destination is a place filled with wonder and charm. It is a place filled with unlimited potential. In its most natural state, when the many inhabitants of this place have cleaned it thoroughly, it is pristine and clean, filled with beautiful lakes with the power to heal with just a touch. It's filled with trees that can allow us to see endless possibilities and birds that twitter about unflinching faith. And sometimes this place, with its many pastimes, as we see even that happens within the earthly realm, sometimes this place can externally appear to be quite polluted. But we shouldn't worry, because at any moment, Krishna can arrive in this most sacred and holy place and make it gleam and glisten just like new again. Our journey begins in the mind and the heart. Our Sri Krishna first appeared within the mind and the heart of Vasudeva. This place is the seat of all the most amazing things that we could ever think of, all of the most incredible things that we could ever feel. It is this wonderful place that our dearest Lord, who is beyond all imagination, first chose to appear. So as we envision the beautiful lotus-eyed Lord within our minds, and we seat him upon the lotus of the heart, because in whichever and whatever form the Lord chooses to appear, he is always complete, perfect, and fully present. We pray humbly to invoke his presence within our minds and hearts now, as we think of the Lord entering the mind and heart of Vasudeva. So from Garga Samhita, it is stated, Sri Krishna, the original supreme personality of Godhead, who is greater than the greatest, personally entered Vasudeva's heart. And the purport says, from Bhakti Ratnakar, Srila Raghava Pandit describes the glories of Mathura, where Lord Krishna appeared as follows. This is the room of Devaki and Vasudeva, where Krishna, the Supreme Lord, took his birth. According to the Skanda Purana, a person who fasts, chants japa, and then takes darshan of this birthplace of Krishna is freed from all sins and is liberated. Also, in the Padma Purana, it is stated that anyone who once enters the Janma Griha, or birthplace of Lord Keshava, during the month of Kartik, achieves the eternal absolute truth, Sri Krishna. So it's a little bit selfish on our part, this Parikrama, that we have the ability to attain the supreme absolute truth just by entering this place in our minds and in our hearts. We have the ability to journey to this place no matter where we are. And when Krishna appears within the mind and the heart, we can remember how he appeared within the mind and the heart of Vasudeva. And the two pastime places become synonymous with one another, because that is Krishna's inconceivable mercy and glory and magic. The great soul Vasudeva shone with a glory like the sun, moon, and fire. He was like a double of the Supreme Lord, the master of all sacrifices. So not only does the pastime place get the ability to become synonymous with one another. They can become doubles of one another. But we see that once Vasudeva held the Lord within his heart and within his mind, he appeared like a double of the Supreme Lord himself, which brings to my mind Uddhava. Within Sri Brihad Bhagavatamrita, it is stated that Uddhava, the gopis saw Uddhava and they judged that he had obtained clearly the liberation of having a form exactly like that of the Lord. Even while within this body, he had already achieved that liberation. And it was something that he didn't even think about because Uddhava looked just like Krishna. So we hear so many times that for those who practice bhakti, everything else is assured as a byproduct, whether it is some material thing that we need, whether it is a form of some kind of liberation, everything else is assured if we just give our hearts to bhakti yoga. And so this is exemplified in Vasudeva, looking like a double of the Supreme Lord. This is what is available to us if we bring him into our minds and our hearts. And it makes me remember that Uddhava was able to go and perform the devotional service of giving a message of hope to the Brijabasis. Not just giving a message of hope to the Brijabasis, but learning from them the highest platforms and the highest lessons of divine love. Now just imagine what message we can give by giving our hearts to bhakti yoga. Just imagine the sheer amount of joy that can be brought to the hearts of others, seeing someone who clearly, you must be a messenger of Krishna. This is what it means to be able, in this context, in our context, to be able to be a double of the Supreme Lord, is just to remind others of Krishna, which can be done just with our appearance. How wonderful we can be messengers of that divine hope. And while being those messengers, we wind up learning the lessons of the highest platforms of devotional service and devotional love for Sri Krishna. So this is what it makes me think of when I read this verse from Garga Samhita about Vasudeva looking like a double of the Lord. This is what it means when the Lord comes to reside within the heart. So from Vasudeva's heart, the Lord travels to Devaki's heart. And Garga Samhita then says, when Lord Krishna, who gives fearlessness to everyone, entered Devaki, she shone as if a great lightning flash had entered her home. It's quite significant within this verse that it is stated first that the Lord is he who gives fearlessness to everyone. Devaki and Vasudeva were under a great amount of fear. I doubt that any of us can even imagine the intense trauma that Devaki suffered while watching the ghastly deeds of her own brother. It is often said that harsh words and deeds committed by a family member are even more hurtful than those committed by an outsider. So I can't even imagine the turmoil and the anxiety and anguish that Devaki must have been in and how she must have been feeling during this incredible shift happening in her life. Seeing child after child of hers killed. Not simply like taken away, and we see it in movies, the screen cuts, and then sometimes there's just a shadow, and then it fades to black, and we never see anything. But Devaki was witnessing firsthand. And for a mother, for any feeling living entity, I cannot imagine the breadth of this like insurmountable ocean of trauma. We talk so much these days about PTSD and post-traumatic stress disorder. And if you want to think about somebody who must have had some kind of PTSD. Vasudeva and Devaki were jailed, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually tortured. So, although we cannot fully understand the extent of her pain, some of us, we may know trauma. We may understand those traumatic feelings. We may be dealing with trauma, and we may be dealing with fear and anxiety and all of those things which can pollute the pilgrimage place of the heart. This place where the Lord first chose to appear. However, the significant point is that the Lord awards all fearlessness. So as he makes his home within our minds and hearts, we can pray that he removes the fear, the anxiety, the trauma, and the pain, and that he just leaves the sweetness of the fragrance emanating from the tulsi leaves on his lotus feet. So I pray, especially in this time of internal upheaval, external upheaval, that the Lord will eradicate all this fear, eradicate all of this trauma and anxiety, and instead leave us with the sweet fragrance of just that tulsi emanating from his lotus feet. Sometimes it seems like a far-fetched idea. We may not be able to fully comprehend the bodily fragrance of Krishna with musk and sandalwood and camphor and aguru. And sometimes we're like, what even are all of these articles? What are they? How do we, and what does the aggregate of all of those actually smell like? But we do know that wonderful fragrance of tulsi, that beautiful fragrance of tulsi, sometimes just in the morning. And Srila Prabhupada has said that that fragrance is actually a little bit mystical sometimes. Tulsi Devi herself does not just allow anyone to be able to smell that fragrance. And so it lends some credibility to the heart of the devotee that we can remember. We can remember that smell, that particular fragrance of tulsi. So let us remember that and bring that fragrance into this pilgrimage place so that we can remember that Krishna is the one who awards fearlessness to all as he illuminates the space of the heart, just as he did with Devaki. He can illuminate our hearts and illuminate our lives until they shine with the fearlessness that comes from his remembrance. In fact, seeing her effulgence struck fear into the heart of Kamsa, the very person that Devaki was afraid of. So, when the Lord personally comes to reside in our minds and our hearts, no longer will our fears feel so substantial, but instead, he can strike fear into the very thing that we are afraid of. And we don't even have to pray for it. We can simply pray to Krishna, keep our minds and hearts as clean as possible. Keep the holy dham of our minds and hearts as clean as possible. Just make those places pastime places, and then he'll suddenly take care of the rest. Sachinandan Maharaj often says that the holy name is so merciful because he takes the menial position of a street sweeper. The personification of the holy name will arrive in the city of the heart. And then the holy name will personally clean that city, all of the alleyways and pathways. He'll sweep every street. And then the personification of the holy name will do one thing further. He will call Sri Krishna to that place and then install him, as our great acharyas say, within the temple of the mind and the heart. So we can pray. And there is a very significant prayer. After Devaki is looking and she is still feeling a little bit of anxiety and fear, she prays. Sri Devaki said, "O Krishna, O Master of countless universes, O Supreme Lord, O flag of Golokadam, O original Lord, O master of the perfect, O perfect one, O most perfect original supreme personality of Godhead, O supreme controller, please protect me from Kamsa's atrocities. So this is a prayer that we can all use. Feel free to substitute whatever names you like. Feel free to substitute whatever situations you need at the time. But we can use these prayers to give us hope and to give us reassurance in times when we feel as though, where do we turn? Sometimes we hear that pure devotees, they don't pray for anything but pure devotional service. But Srila Prabhupada also says that devotees, even if they are in danger, when they are in danger, the first thing they do is pray. When they are in anxiety and when they are stressed, the first thing they do is pray to Krishna. So we can take these prayers. These prayers are meant for us to take them, use them in our lives, press them to our hearts, somehow or other, memorize them so that in times of need, we can pull them. These are our arrows. These are our weapons for surviving in this material existence. These are the very instruments that we have to help us along this path. So in order to round up our trip to the pastime place of the heart, we can meditate on two wonderful prayers spoken by the demigods when they came to visit Devaki. And they prayed to the Supreme Lord as a child, who willingly entered her womb by his own causeless mercy and his inconceivable pastimes. O blissful Lord, we place in our hearts the nectar pollen gently blowing from your lotus feet as you walk, rare pollen not attained by even the purest yogis, but only by they whose pure hearts melt with love for you. In our hearts we place wonderful you, whose handsome form is more charming than 100 million Kamadevs, who are the glory of the realm of Goloka, who are the master of Radha and the wealth of the earth. One purport says the object of knowledge, or the absolute truth, remains unattainable by Vedic wisdom alone. One must approach the Supreme with love and devotion to win his favor. That form of yoga, bhakti, melts the stone-like heart and allows one access to the purest person, Sri Krishna. So this is how we make our pilgrimage site ready and worthy for Krishna to enact his pastimes there. We see that Vasudeva and Devaki, going through trial after trial, tribulation after tribulation, they just continued to hold the faith that Krishna would save them. They had to believe in a prophecy that they heard once and not again. I am a person that if I hear that a blessing is coming or I even hear about a surprise, I wind up asking about it like every day. I need constant reassurance. Are we still on the right track? Oh, Govinda, what's happening? Well, oh, Govinda, well, how long is it going to take? Well, Govinda, when is it going to happen? Well, what's it going to look like when it happens? Vasudeva and Devaki heard a prophecy one time, and they were able to hold on to that faith in Sri Krishna so much that it became their meditation, their focus, their only hope. It became their very religion and their spirituality. They had nothing else but that belief. This is what melts the stone-like heart and makes it a pilgrimage place worthy of our Supreme Personality of Godhead. So if we are going through trials and tribulations, we're in great company. We're in the best company. We find ourselves in the best lineage. Unfortunately or fortunately, we have to follow in the footsteps of great Vaishnavas. And all the Vaishnavas have had some sorts of trials and tribulations, up to and including the Supreme Lord himself. So no one is immune. Trials and tribulations are part of our parampara, part of our tradition. So we could take heart looking at the different obstacles that come in our way and think, well, I'm following the right lineage then. We're in good company. So next, we travel to an even more mystical place than the first. We journey to a realm where we house our most cherished desires, the ones that we have which are not tethered to what we think we can achieve or not. We enter a beautiful realm which is not governed by any outside circumstances. We travel to the realm of dreams. It is described in Gopal Champu that Nanda and Yashoda, within the divine realm of Gokula, yearned for a child for many years without gaining the satisfaction of their hearts. They hoped and prayed and performed sacrifices, but all to no avail. Their story is told by Madhukanta and Snigdakanta, two court poets who daily regale Nandaraj and Yashodarani and the many inhabitants of Vrindavan with the soothing balm of Krishna's pastimes. Nanda Maharaj wished for a child like no other. Though the couple had all the wealth, in private they spoke as follows. Nanda Maharaj said, "My dear wife, when the grief-stricken relatives perform sacrifice for bestowing on us a child, who is their shelter? At the time of sankalpa, at the time of intention, my mind desires a son more wonderful than all others. How can this remarkable son be attained by pious acts? The son I desire cannot be attained by karma. He is the very cause of karma and the cause of the universe. If they perform sacrifice for another type of child, I have no interest. If it is impossible to gain such a son by following scriptures, my desire for attaining a son will diminish. How can an imaginary flower be sweet next to a parijata flower? What form can be sweeter than the form of Narayan, who is the supreme shelter of the Vedas and who is so merciful to me?" He later goes on to state, "I see when I hope for a child and when I set my intentions, I see an attractive child with dark complexion and long eyes playing on your lap. Is this a dream or am I awake? I cannot say. But dear wife, tell me, have you seen this dream as well?" Yashodarani is very shy to admit it, but she has also seen this very dream within her heart. So we can understand that our dreams, if Krishna is present within them, he has really been present in our lives. Not just are these daydreams that are had by Nandaraj and Yashoda, but after they have that conversation, they think, well, what should we do? And there is a Dwadasi Vrat that they perform for 1 year in order to gain the favor of the Supreme Lord. And when that 1 year vow had been completed and increased the desire in their minds, Lord Narayan appeared to both of them in a dream. He says, "When you have such intense devotion to me, why are you lamenting so much? That boy, blue like an atasi flower that you have repeatedly experienced, will appear as your son. Following you, he will be born as your son to spread his own bhakti in every kalpa. The forms of Drona and Dara I arranged in Swarg are your expansions." So we hear of Drona and Dara as the previous incarnations of Nanda and Yashoda, but here we hear from Gopal Champu that really those Swarga Loka, Drona and Dara, those incredible entities are the expansions, because Nanda and Yashoda really are the eternal parents of Krishna. So we hear that after the Lord spoke these most beneficial words and disappeared, Nanda and Yashoda both awoke and became immersed in an ocean of nectar. Speaking to each other and revealing it to each other, they became filled with astonishment. So the Lord is really present in our lives. It is an accepted Vaishnav truth that the dreams of the Guru and Krishna cannot be false. So I pray that as we circumambulate this wonderful pastime place of dreams, that the Lord's associates become so pleased with us that they see fit to appear in our dreams. If they give us the priceless jewel of their association, and if we are able to please them, then maybe Krishna will appear in our dreams too. Or maybe for some of you, he already has. I offer my respectful obeisances to Sri Krishna, who displays such wonderful and unique pastimes and pastime places. It makes me think of the sweet Damodarastakam and all of these translations. Krishna is not bound by anything. Krishna is able to do anything and everything. And for those who love him exclusively, he does anything and everything. So these are pastime places, and this is a parikrama that can happen at any time. This is a parikrama that now transcends our waking hours. We can now, Bhaktitirtha Maharaj would often say, we can spiritualize our dreams. Listening to something spiritual 15 minutes or so before we go to sleep, reading something spiritual, saturating our minds with Krishna's wonderfully spiritual energy just before we go to sleep can turn our dreams into a spiritual place of pilgrimage. So we have the mind, we have the heart, and we have the land of dreams. But we have to make a brief stop at the jail in which Devaki gave birth to Lord Vasudeva, Sri Krishna. Because of course it says that one who visits this place is able to attain the supreme absolute truth, Sri Krishna. So even though we visited it in the mind and the heart, let us take a moment to really place ourselves in that situation. In a darkened cell, who can imagine that the Lord of the universe would choose the most least likely place to create such a wondrous pastime? Stuck behind jailers and doorkeepers and guards and with chains and all kinds of things. I can't imagine the darkness, the dank atmosphere, because jails are not usually a pretty, very well-kept place. They're jails, they're dungeons. So we can think that normally a dungeon would not be a place where you could see yourself, rolling on the ground in ecstasy, thinking about the pastimes of our dear Sri Krishna Chandra. But now we have miracles happening in the least likely of places. So we can look at our lives and find the least likely place and then try and find out, has Krishna appeared there? We can look at the times where we feel as though, okay, maybe I felt so disconnected from my Krishna consciousness. And then we can look back and see, but did Krishna appear there? Did he perform some miracle in my life? I'm sure if we look back, we can find something. We can find some small thing. This is what I remember when I think about the jail cell, a place where you would not at all think that the supreme divine abode of all spiritual love and knowledge and transcendental bliss would choose to make his appearance again and again and again. Every time this pastime is performed eternally, this is what he chooses. So where are those places in my life where a miracle is the least likely to occur? Where are those places in my life where I'm least likely to gain the favor of Sri Krishna? And then how can I gain the favor of Sri Krishna in those places? Because if we simply bring him into our hearts, he's already assured us that he will be present there. No problem. Nothing is a problem for him. And not only does he make that dungeon a pastime place, but he also purifies the entire atmosphere around it. So if we look at those places where we are having the most trouble and the most difficulty, and we invoke the presence of Sri Krishna into those places, even if we feel afraid and anxiety, even if we feel ashamed or guilty, we can remove those jail keepers and ask Krishna, please appear in this place, and then make everything around it perfect. Devaki referred to him as most perfect and the perfect Supreme Lord. She used perfect so many times in that one prayer. And I felt like it was so poignant because Krishna can make everything perfect. Absolutely, we're not perfect, but Krishna can make us so. Krishna can make us look wonderful. When he appeared in Devaki's heart, transferred to her womb, Devaki looked like the most beautiful maiden. It was impossible not to look at her and know that there was a divine entity there. It was impossible not to see it. Kamsa saw it, jailers saw it, everybody knew. Demigods knew. So when we invoke the presence of Sri Krishna, even in those places that we think Krishna doesn't reside here, he has nothing to do with this, my shame, my worry, my fear, my anxiety, bring him there. Let us grab hold of his hand and bring him there. And then watch as he changes every constellation. Watch as he brings in seasons that are not even supposed to appear at that time. The most wonderful thing about Vrindavan is that it displays 6 seasons, but only when Krishna desires. So the seasons appear whenever he thinks they should. So this can happen in our lives. Krishna can change the stars. Krishna can change our fate. Krishna can change all of the seasons of our lives. It doesn't matter. What is most important to him is that we've called out. Within the nectar of devotion, when we talk about those who are generous and gracious, those who remember their friends, Krishna is said to be the best. And he says that when Draupadi was in the court of the Kurus and she called out to me, I became in her debt. And thinking about the way she called out to me, hey Govinda, oh Krishna, please save me. The more I think about it, the more indebted I become. This is the wondrous quality of Krishna. Sometimes we think, if I call out to Krishna, I feel like maybe I'm just selfish. But Krishna, however, says, the minute you call out to me, I feel indebted to you because you thought about me. How amazing is our Lord, who decides that just us calling out to him in anxiety is a form of the greatest service. This is our Lord who can make a mountain out of a molehill. Just for his devotees, though. He can change a barren wasteland into the most beautiful kingdom in the entire world, as he did with Kandavaprast to Indraprast for the Pandavas. He can take all of the nothing that we have and make it the most amazing something that we have ever seen. And when he does it, no one does it like Krishna. No one makes plans like Krishna. There's no one that can be a better arranger, a party planner, a better performer of miracles than Krishna. So when he makes all the constellations do what they do, and he makes everything happen exactly the way it should, and he makes our lives perfect, even in the least likely of places, somehow not only are our lives all affected, but the lives of everyone around us are affected. So just as it is said that during this Kartik Mas, those who observe vows not only give benefit to themselves, but generations upon generations of their families, Sri Krishna does the same thing. It is not lost upon me the irony that whenever Krishna performed a miracle for the Pandavas, it was in such a huge way and very public and almost kind of like in your face for the Kauravas. So this is what we can expect from our dramatic, wonderful Lord if we take shelter of these pastime places, which are so unique. And these are pastime places that we always have with us. We have our minds and our hearts. Those never leave us. We have the land of dreams, even if we don't remember them. Krishna can make it so that we'll remember the one that we had with his associates. We have readings, looking and entering in to that jail cell where Krishna decided to perform the utmost miracle, where he started performing miracle after miracle. We have these places with us always, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing. So even if we're at work, even if we're during the day, whatever it is, we don't even have to take out strange time in order to be able to visit these pastime places. In this way, this lockdown, this entire global climate has given us a great gift. Being able to recognize more clearly the miracles in our everyday lives. Sometimes we're going about our lives and we don't even pay attention to what's happening. I go to work, you come home, everything is fine. Somebody makes dinner, and then you eat dinner, and then you do your sadhana, or maybe you've done your sadhana in the morning, and then everything goes on. And unless something really big happens, we keep going on with our day. But now, every day, it's like every single day, material nature is bringing to the forefront. Oh, here, look, there's someone else, though, that needs you to pray for them. Every day, oh, there's somebody else who needs prayer. Oh, look, here's someone who got sick and then recovered. Oh, look, here's someone who needs help because they lost their home. We have nothing else to do but look these different obstacles in the face. We're not able to run away from them so readily anymore. But when those obstacles appear, we also have the ability to look at the miracles that follow them. So I hope and pray that in visiting these pastime places, we are able to empathize with our friends, family, community, society that are going through so much. We can remember the great devotees who have also gone through so much and we're going through so much. And we can also remember the biggest lesson that in each and every single one of these situations, the beautiful son of Krishna came out at the end. When it appeared the most dark, when it would seem as though Devaki should have lost all hope, the beautiful son of Sri Krishna came out at the end, and he was able to make everything perfect. Now, perfect may look different from one situation to another, but Krishna will always make everything perfect. All glories to these very unique pastime places. Thank you so much for joining with me, journeying with me, going there and coming back. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Acyuta Gopi Devi Dasi, for taking us with so much love to the heart of Krishna's pastimes. And And it's true. It's really by hearing that we get transferred to the Lord, isn't it? Isn't it amazing that just by listening to these wonderful pastimes, and especially when they're spoken with so much love and so much saturation of affection for the Lord, then it really penetrates the core of the heart, and and we can be grateful, all of us collectively, that we are in this apparently unfortunate situation, reaping the greatest fortune,
Yeah.
you know, of the pastime of the Lord, and the form, the qualities, and the dham of the Lord. So we really appreciate it, and then of course bring it back home and applying it in our day-to-day lives, and thinking deeply about the value that, hey, is it just another day, another day? But we can't add value unless we take ourselves to the feet of the Lord, Lotus feet. So thank you once again. Um, if anyone has any other appreciations or comments to make, please feel free. We'll be wrapping up any moment now. I'm just going to be making some announcements very soon. Yeshadullah Prabhu, thank you very much again for coordinating this as always.
Yes.
This would not be possible without Yeshadullah Prabhu's incredible coordinations and following up and so on. So anybody else want to say another Yeshua Prabhu? Perhaps you want to express some of your inner feelings. I know you're smiling like anything and clapping in virtual world there.
Yeah, no, I'm always very happy to hear Acyuta speak, because she has a contagious excitement for her Govinda that takes us into her realm, and we can actually get infected by that enthusiasm and that love for Govinda. So I'm always smiling when she speaks Krishna Katha, or when she speaks, period. Thank you, Acyuta.
Thank you. And we have a comment from Sharita Mataji. Thank you. Such a thoughtful and insightful presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. So I'm just going to go and make our regular announcements. So we have our upcoming classes. So everybody knows. And Sonam also says, agree with Yeshua Prabhu. Thank you, Sonam, for your comment.
I have a comment.
Yes, Prabhu, please go ahead.
Acyuta Gopi, thank you for your class and creating that fearlessness in our heart, even very bad time. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Haribo, Haribo. Yadunath Prabhu says, brava. And Vidhi says, love you, Acyuta Didi. Thank you. Jai. Hare Krishna. So I'm just going to make our quick regular announcements, then we can have everybody else can unmute themselves. Right?
Actually, Madan Gopal Prabhu, while you're doing that, one quick thing. I noticed there are people here who are in time zones which are really far off. So Vijay Krishna Prabhu, it was 12 o'clock when we started, and Ananga Sundari, I think, Amisha Singapuri from the UK, it was 1 o'clock when we started. So yeah, so all kudos to them for coming in and joining at really late times for them.
Yes, thank you. And we have devotees from joining regularly from Australia and from India. And these are all very unusual times to be connecting, but somehow, the nectar overrides all these inconveniences. Thank you all for consistently supporting us by showing up and enthusing our hearts that we're making this whole effort worthwhile. So upcoming events, we have the Pathways to Perfection